now. Hello everyone, welcome to another AWS project. It is me, Natasha, here from the Nextwork team, and I am super excited to be doing this project with you today. I know I say that about every single project, but I promise you, this one is so hype because we will be connecting a GitHub repo with AWS. Now, that's one reason to be excited. I think another reason to be excited is the fact that we're now on part 2 of our DevOps X AWS project series. So in this 7 project series, we are working towards creating a CI/CD pipeline to build and deploy this simple web app using AWS code services, as well as the help of some really cool tools like GitHub and like VS Code. A big shout out to Mariana, who has already said hi in the chat. Thank you so much, Mariana, and it's so good to have you here today. If you are also seeing this right now, please come and say hi in the chat. It makes a big difference. And yeah, let's kick things off. So what you're gonna build at the end of our CI/CD pipeline series is you're gonna build this entire pipeline, starting with you being an IAM user, all the way to building using VS Code as your IDE. And then we are going into having your own EC2 instance where you're gonna have your development environment. So that's pretty much where you house all of your files for your application, your web app. And then you have the lovely GitHub over here, which we're focusing on. There are a few other services here that we'll touch on later on in the series, plus this one at the top here. But what you should really know so far is the first little bit of this pipeline. So we have already done part 1 of this series, where you would have learned how to create an IAM user, you would have learned how to use VS Code, to use it to talk to your EC2 instance, and also set up your web app files. Now in this part, we're here now. We're gonna be using the lovely GitHub to set up a cloud repository for our code, and then connect it to all of the architecture and all the things we set up already in part 1. I'm so excited to see everyone in the chat because I'm seeing Benedict saying hi. A big shout out to you, Benedict. You've been doing awesome. I've been loving seeing your work in the community. Thank you so much. We have Stephen Michael. Hi, Stephen. I don't think it's your first time here, Stephen. I feel like I've seen your name around before. So it's really good to have you back. Thank you. Affinity Trishika says, hello, ma'am. I'm loving your tutorials. Thank you so much, Trishika. It's so cool to hear that. You know, which tutorial have you used most recently? I would love to know. And find the function, my guy or my gal, good afternoon or morning. It's good evening over here. What about for you, find the function? Aman says hello, and we also have Faruha. Hi, Faruha. I remember you, and I love your profile pic saying hey. I'm saying hi back. So yeah, if you're watching this right now, please come say hi in the chat. It makes a big difference. Hey, Edmund says hello, Net, as well. I just saw you an hour ago, Edmund, at our community event with our guest speaker. So to see you here again, it means a lot. Thank you so much, Edmund. It's cool to be hanging out twice in a row. Oh, it's also evening for Find the Function. Where are you based, Find the Function? Are you in the community right now? I wish I could find you, Find the Function. All right, so a big thank you again to everyone in the chat. And we're now going to be talking about storing your web application code, source code in a repository. So please, no worries if you're new to repositories in this project. You'll learn what they mean, why they're important, how we're actually going to use it. And in short, if you really want to have a bit of a spoiler, they're just essential for you to track changes you make to your code. GitHub in particular is also great for collaboration. So for multiple people working on the same project, GitHub is super helpful for you to be able to see what everyone's working on and also track your changes as a group. Now, we're going to get ready to set up Git and GitHub in this project. You're going to connect your web app to GitHub, and then you're going to make changes to your web app files. And then you're going to see those changes in GitHub too. I feel like that's a pretty cool part about this project. You're going to be making changes locally and then see those changes pop up in GitHub for you too in your local repository. Now, I'm noticing that the font size for this part of the screen is looking a little bit small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try just make this bigger for all of us here. Can I make this bigger for everyone? Shall we give this a go? Please let me know if it's easier to see afterwards. Whoa. Hello, everyone. I'm just gonna see if I can make this font size bigger. Is this better, everyone? I'm gonna close the tab. Is this better for seeing the text on the screen? I hope so. And if the screen's ever a bit too small, let me know. And we'll absolutely do our best to just make things a little bigger for us. Quick question. I'm not done yet on Project 1 in the DevOps series because of some documentation issue. Oh, I know exactly what issue you're talking about, Edmund. Can I start the second project without completing the first one? Absolutely, you can. Now, the second one does pick up exactly where the first one leaves off. And what that means is we're actually going to be doing most of the things that we do in step 1 in step 2 as well. The only things that you're not going to be doing that's from step 1 is like the installation of like the installing of software. So if you've already installed VS Code, and if you've already installed something called the SSH, remote SSH extension in VS Code, it means you're pretty much all sorted to just work on this project too. But it will be a longer project for you because some of the steps that we'll be doing is overlapping from the previous project. So if you haven't finished the previous project yet, those steps might feel a bit new to you. So you might take a bit more time to do those steps. Having said all that, I would love to have you here today, Edmund, to hear your thoughts on how you're finding the project, give some feedback. Have the console open in front of you right now. Praneeth from the community always says, I try to beat Natasha in terms of how fast she is in completing this project. And I feel like you could too. Edmund. All right, great. Great to hear from everyone that the font size is looking a bit better now. Thanks, Mariana and Aman. And Steve says hi. Hi, Steve. Okay, so how much support do you want? We always choose the high touch version because high touch is where you get the entire step-by-step guidance. And I think that's honestly super helpful. It is also why we do these live project demos, so we can go through everything step by step together. Now, if you're ever stuck, ask the Nextdoor community, and the link to that is in here in the project guide. You can find the project right now in the description box in this video. Students like you are asking questions about this project. They've asked questions about GitHub before, so you won't be alone in whatever issue you run into. Now, if you want documentation for your project, it is super easy. All you have to do is fill out the tasks in this project to get your own documentation that gets automatically generated for you. So you won't need to open a new file, open a Word document, or anything like that. You just type in your answers to some questions in this project step-by-step guide. You upload a few screenshots, and whoosh, off you go. You'll see a PDF at the very end of this. All right. Now, what are we here to do today? Let us answer the first question, and I am noticing how atrociously small this text box is. It makes me feel a little embarrassed about doing all that work to make the font size bigger, because I feel like I'm actually going to make it smaller back, just so that these boxes aren't too overwhelmingly big. I can't believe it, guys. I can't believe it looks so intensely slim. Let me see if I can change this again. I can't believe it, guys. What do I do? Shall I keep it like this, or shall I change it? Let me know what you think. Oh dear, I feel like this might not be very easy. Oh, actually, it's not that hard. I just need to go change some of the font size stuff to 1.7. Maybe this is better. Oh yeah, this is much better. I think this box size is much better. So let's go with this one. Okay. Faraha says, I'll check on the projects you've done already. Is there a Discord channel? Oh, no, there isn't, but we do have a community. If anyone in the chat has access to the community right now, can you please send that to Faraha in the chat, please? Otherwise, I'll send it myself. But I'd love for someone in the community to have the opportunity to recommend the community to someone else. So if anyone's happy to send that link in the chat, I will be forever grateful. All right, so what are we here to do today? Now, today we are here in this project. We are here to set up a GitHub repository to store the source code for our web application. By now, we've already set up a web app in the cloud. Now, in this part, we'll also store backups and track changes with the help of Git. All right, so that's what we're doing in this project. And I'm going to quickly send the link to the community in the chat as well, so that Faraha has a copy. Alrighty, Faraha, you'll be able to get access to all of our free AWS projects, and also stay in touch with everyone in the community from here. So what I'll do is I will send this link to you. Alrighty, Faraha, I hope this helps you. Cool beans. Alright. Now that we have kind of set our intention for the day, we will be working on this together. But to start, we'll be setting up an IAM user, or really, if you already have one, just log into that IAM user. IAM users are free to create, free to keep. So I've already logged into my AWS console with my IAM user. I'll be using this today. If you don't have one set up yet, the steps to do that are right here. It is step-by-step guidance. It takes about 10 minutes to set up this IAM user. You also have a video guide on how to set this up in the description box for this video as well. So depending on whether you like text or you like video, choose the style that you like and set up your IAM user that way. I'm not going to be doing this live in this project demo because most students up to this project would have already created one before. So take the time to just log in now to your IAM user, and then we're going to jump into step 2. Now, step 2 of this project is to set up your web app in the cloud. This is essentially what we do in project 1 of this DevOps series, and we're pretty much starting from the top again. If you've done project 1 of this series and you haven't deleted your resources yet, you can actually skip to the next step. But we haven't. I currently don't have this done because you're supposed to delete all your resources at the end of the previous project. So what we're going to do here is we're going to learn how to launch an EC2 instance. We're going to set up VS Code on your local computer, and then we're going to use this extension called Remote SSH to connect VS Code with that EC2 instance. This is going to take probably about an hour if you are completely new to this series and you haven't done that previous part first. Since we have done that previous part already, I'm going to assume that we have. What that means is I'll be going through these steps a little faster than if you hadn't done these steps before. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just be zooming through these setup steps so we can go to the juicy bits of step 3 onwards in this project. And step 3 is when we're really starting to get to know Git. This is step 2, if you need a context. Okay, so step 2, we're just going to launch that EC2 instance right here, and then we're going to set up VS Code right here, and then we're going to set up that connection between those two, that arrow here, where VS Code is going to be able to talk to our EC2 instance so that we can set up the web app. And this little baby file called index.jsp is a representation of our web app in this architecture diagram. Okay. And then we also have the IAM user, which we would have created already in the previous step. Okay. Now, how this all starts is with an EC2 instance, right? So we've talked about this in the previous project, but really the EC2 instance, what we're launching as our very, very first practical step in AWS, the reason why we're doing this is because we're launching a web app in the cloud. So where should that web app live? That's really the question that we're trying to answer right now. And there are no running instances in my console, so we're going to launch an instance from scratch. So this instance is going to be storing all of the web app files, and we're just going to give it a very generic name. It's going to be called Network DevOps your name, and then we're going to give it a AMI of 2023 AMI. Make sure to pick this one, okay? And a big shout out to Faraha for saying, I'm in, glad to be a part of the Network community. Woo! Please introduce yourself in the community, have fun. I'll see you there, Faraha. All right, the instance type that we're going to pick for this EC2 instance is the free tier eligible one. Yeah, we'll just make sure we're picking t2.micro. And then we will select a key pair. This key pair we've already set up in the previous project, Network key pair. If you happen to remember what a key pair means, type it into the chat. I'd love to hear a definition of it. In short, a key pair is pretty much your authentication tool into your EC2 instance. An EC2 instance is a virtual server in the cloud. It's pretty much like having a computer that lives like in the cloud, invisible to you pretty much. But with a key pair, you can securely access it remotely from your machine. And that's why key pair is so important for this project, because we want to have access to our virtual server. And how should we get access? With a key pair. All right, so we've picked the key pair here. And for our network settings, make sure you're allowing SSH traffic. SSH traffic is pretty much how we're going to be talking to that EC2 instance, how we're going to be opening the door to the instance, get access to it, yeah? So we want to allow SSH traffic, and we want to make sure it's our IP address that we're allowing SSH traffic from, okay? By doing this, you're making sure that your EC2 instance, your virtual server in the cloud, is only allowing traffic from you, okay? So it's not going to let someone sitting next door to you, it's not going to let someone 2 streets down from you or in a whole other country to be able to access your virtual server, because they won't have the same IP address as you. And right now, the EC2 instance can only let in traffic from you. So this is a really, really good safety measure to have. All right. And then just like that, I think we're all done with setting up the EC2 instance, and you can launch it right away like this. Again, if you think I'm going a bit too quickly, it's because these steps we've run before in part 1 of this project. And if you'd like a slower explanation style, the link to part 1 of this project is in the description box as well. But a big shout out to all of you who are currently live and watching this. Yeah, I have mad respect to all of you. I have mad respect to all of you. Okay, so what's happening here is we have a step that says you should store your key pair in a folder called DevOps. Do I already have that key pair in a folder called DevOps? Yes, I do. Why? It's because this was already set up in the previous project. All right, so if you have done the previous project, this should be the setup that's in your desktop. You should already have a folder called DevOps. You should already have a key pair, your private key, which is called networkkeypair.pem. Okay, so this should already be here. If you don't know how to do it, these are the instructions for doing that over here. Okay. All right, so once that's done, you can move on to installing VS Code. All right, who in this chat has already has VS Code? Type in a quick yes or type in a quick no. I'm very curious. Do you already have VS Code? Do you know how to use it? Or are you completely new to it? Let me know. I'm very, very curious. I would love to hear it. All right, so when you can totally install VS Code by following the link in here, okay? And this is where it will take you, like this. and you can follow the instructions in part 1 of this project series to figure out which one's the best one for you. Okay, so there are instructions in the project step-by-step guide on figuring out how you can pick the right one for your computer and for the version that it's using, but it should be easy as. Okay, and then yeah, it's cool to hear that Furaha, Find the Function, Aman, and Edmund, all of you already have it installed. Whew. In that case, let's move straight into it. You can find VS Code in your local computer, either in your downloads folder or already in applications if you've been using it, and open it up right now, please. Now, we're going to be using VS Code to try connect to our EC2 instance. That's the reason why we're really using VS Code throughout this series, because it has a few tools that makes it very, very easy for us to talk to our EC2 instance that's in the cloud right now. You don't technically have to use VS Code for this project. If you have a preferred IDE, use that. If you really want to be like super intense just in the terminal, you can use your local computer's terminal. I wouldn't personally recommend that, but it's still an option. So you can still do that. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how you can open VS Code in your local computer, and then you can find something called Terminal at the top menu bar, and that's where you'll select New Terminal, like this. Boom! Now your terminal is going to come up from the bottom. Okay? And I'm going to zoom in a little so you can see my terminal even better. I hope that's not too zoomed in. I hope that's not too zoomed in, everyone. We'll see how we go with that. But once you have opened your terminal, you can actually start running commands. All right, a terminal is where you send text commands to replace kind of clicks around your computer. So instead of saying open this folder by clicking on it, you can use terminal to send a text command to say, oh, can you open this folder for me? And we're going to see how we can do that. Navigate your terminal to the DevOps folder as the very first step, right? So we can do this on the desktop pretty easily. I don't think you can see my computer very, very easily, but let's say I have my desktop. It's actually very easy for me to just navigate to something called a DevOps folder. Oh my gosh, it's so messy here. Let me use groups so you can see it. Okay, there's like a DevOps folder right here. So it's so easy to click into here and see it right away. And that's like by using clicks. But what if we were to use commands? Okay, so if we were to use commands, we will go cd. Oh, whoa, what was that? That is not what we want. You can go cd squiggly line desktop/DevOps. Okay, so this is saying change the directory from the home directory, which is kind of like the starting point, navigate me into desktop, and then navigate me into the DevOps folder. Okay, so once we're here, we're in the DevOps folder, we've run the command. You can even run something called ls to prove to yourself that there is something called the network key pair inside this folder. Now we're going to change the permission settings for this file, and we can do that by using a Linux command. And that command is called chmod 400 networkkeypair.pem. And I'm using this because I am a Mac user, but we have different commands for different kinds of operating systems. So there's Windows commands here right now as well. If you run into any issues with this though, you can absolutely share your errors or your questions with the community, and we can help each other out. Cool. So now that we've changed the permission settings for our private key, that means we now have the ability to use that private key to connect to the EC2 instance. All right, the private key is literally our authentication tool to get into the EC2 instance. So changing permissions was so important for us to be able to give us access to this file, but also block out other people's access to that file. Because imagine if you've just created this key that's like the magic key to your very, very hyper secret computer, but then everyone can have access to that key, well, then your hyper secret computer isn't going to be very safe. So what running chmod 400 does for us is to keep that secret key not accessible to anyone else. Only you can touch it and see it. And what that means is it keeps your super secret computer very, very safe too. So now that we've made our private key extremely private, we can now try to connect to the EC2 instance using this private key. Now, how we can do that is by going back to our AWS Management Console, right over here, and then we can find our instance by clicking on Instances in the left-hand corner, and we can select our EC2 instance that we've launched to find something called the public IPv4 DNS. Okay, and this is the public IPv4 DNS. It's like the public address for your EC2 instance. What that means is when you run a command, when we run this next command, we are going to paste this public IPv4 address that we found here as a way to be like, oh yeah, the EC2 instance I want to connect to, this is where it lives. This is the location of that EC2 instance. Otherwise, how would your local computer know which instance you're trying to connect to? You will have to tell it what is the address of the computer of the EC2 instance you've created it is, so that it knows where to find it. Okay, so the command we're going to run now, which is SSH, lets us connect to the EC2 instance. Shall we give it a try? We'll run SSH-I, path to your .pem file is the next bit here, so I'm following these commands over here. And that path is called squiggly line /desktop /DevOps. And what else? What else is in this path? Well, the name of the file itself is a very, very important part of that path. So let's include the name of the file. And then what's next is, we're trying to access it as the default user, which is called the EC2 user. And then here is the, oh, dearie me, I copied the wrong thing. And we want to log in as the EC2 user to the EC2 instance, which is in this address here. Okay, run that. Okay. Now, we're being told that your server doesn't really quite recognize this server that you're trying to connect to. It's saying, whoa, you're trying to go SSH, you're trying to unlock this EC2 instance. Are you sure? Do you trust it? Do you want to continue connecting? Is it safe? Yeah, we're all good here. Okay, so press yes, and ta-da! We're here, we're connected to the EC2 instance. I know I'm going through this a bit quickly, and that's because I am assuming that you've done part 1 of this project series. So if you've never done that project before, highly recommend you check out the guide for that, or if you've never done it before but you're still finding it easy to follow along, kudos to you as well. Kudos to you. Although I do recommend checking out that part anyway. Alright, just like that, we've connected to the EC2 instance. Okay? And a big shout out to everyone saying thank you for the content. Viresh, thank you so much for the support. Aman saying, who on your team is really in love with terminal SSH? I think you're looking at that person. No, everyone on the team is a big fan of it. Alright, so connection done. We have accessed the project. We've accessed the EC2 instance now. We're inside the EC2 instance that we've launched in the cloud. So what should we do next? Well, we know we're here to build a web app. We have unlocked and gotten access to the EC2 instance. The reason why we even created this EC2 instance is so that it can house our web app's files. It can be kind of the place where we are developing this web app. Okay, up in the cloud. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to be installing tools that helps us with building the web app. We can't really just build the web app from scratch on our own because there are usually a few tools that really help us with getting there. Aman, you said that you can't find the project guide for this. Can you paste it here? would you be able to find it if you check the description of this video? I hope that helps you, Aman. If you still can't find it in the description box, let me know, and I'll quickly switch gears and send that to you. Or actually, maybe I can just send it to you from here. Could that be possible? Let's see if I can. Oh yo, this is jumping in and out for me. And King of Zamunda, thank you so much for saying hello, Nat and the team. Not so late, am I? Hola, King of Zamunda, and no, you're not too late. Kemi says, I can't wait to finish my exam and start creating my projects again. Us too, Kemi, miss you so much. A project a day? We have not forgotten your commitment. We can't wait for you to come back too. So what we're going to do in this step is we're going to install two tools, one called Apache Maven and the other called Amazon Corretto 8, so that we can start building our web app using those tools. We're going to install Apache Maven using this tool, and I'm going to run the commands right away. It takes a little bit of time to run those commands. And in the meantime, while we're waiting, you can learn what Apache Maven's about. So Apache Maven is a tool that helps developers build and organize Java software projects. It's also a package manager, which means it automatically downloads any external pieces of code that your project depends on. So really what this is saying is Apache Maven is a package, it's a tool that really helps you with building Java software projects, because it's made of a lot of templates and comes with a lot of templates, and you can pull those templates and be like, oh, let's create a web app. Okay, use this template to create a web app. And it has all different kinds of templates. That's not just web apps, also different kinds of applications, all with Java. So we're gonna be using Maven later on to help us set up all the necessary web files to create that web app. Okay, and it's also the reason why we're installing Java. So copy this code here to install Java, just like that. Off it goes. And like I mentioned before, Maven is a tool for building Java web apps. So you're probably going to need to install Java itself so that your EC2 instance can actually process and run Maven. So you can think of it this way. Install Java, which is a very, very popular programming language used to build different types of apps. Okay? And then use Maven, which uses Java, and install Maven, which uses Java to create Java web apps for us in a very, very quick way using those templates. Okay. Nico says, hi, Nat. I like your hair, by the way. Oh, thank you so much. It's actually a pretty embarrassing story. I cut it just like that in one go, and I'm like, oh my god, I think I cut it too short. But I was like, oh my gosh, but I need to go live anyway. So I was just like, oh my gosh, next time I'm going to be a bit more careful before I cut my hair off too quickly. But thank you so much, Nico. Appreciate it. All right. So I see the project one in the description, not this one. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Furaha, that's huge. I didn't realize you could only see the first project in the description. You should be able to see the GitHub repo one at the very, very top line. Actually, I'm just checking the description box right now. I can still access the project guide for this project if I just click on the very, very first link. Okay, and then project one is the second link in the middle of the description box. So check out the link at the very, very top, not the one in the middle, so that you can get access to the project guide. Okay. Cool beans. So we have just run the commands for installing Java. And now we're going to verify that we've actually installed those tools. To verify that we've installed Maven, we have to run nvn-v like this. Looks good. So we have Apache Maven version 3.5.2, which is what we want. Okay? It should mention 3.5.x for us. So next we're going to make sure we've installed Java correctly by running java-version like this. Java-version like this. Does it look right to us? I think that looks pretty good. It says 1.8 8.0 point something, and I think that looks pretty good. So don't forget, it's Java 8 that we want, so it should say 8 in the middle here. And yeah, by the way, Furaha, if you still can't find the project, please let me know, yeah? Okay. Now that we have Maven and we have Java, the next step is to create the application itself. So we have the tools that are going to help us build this application. We've learned that Maven comes with templates to build the application very, very quickly for us. So let's use that Maven template. We're going to say, hey Maven, you know that template you have for creating a Java web app? Let's use that template. Let's spin up a web app using this handy template that you have over there. And Java says, yeah, sure. You have Java installed, so I have everything I need to create that web app for you. Doot. Okay, we're gonna hang up now. I'm gonna run those commands. I'm gonna be like, Maven, say less. Let me run the command. Let me please ask for your help with creating this Java web app. So off it goes. Java is now installing a lot of different packages, a lot of different tools, and look at that, build success. In just 10 seconds, Java has built a basic web app for us. Okay, using a lot of tools and using the template that it uses again and again to create a web app. Ivan in the chat says, hi Nat, nice project. Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you so much. You're an amazing person in the community, helping all the students out in the meantime while we've been getting this project ready. So thank you so much. Okay, so watch out for that build success message, which we have exactly right here. And we're going to now connect VS Code with our EC2 instance. What is this step for? In this step, you're connecting VS Code to your EC2 instance so you can see and edit the web app that Maven has just created for us using that template, right? Because Maven has just said, build success. I've created the web app successfully. Great. And then Maven's kind of like gone now. And we're going, thanks, Maven. You've created a web app. Where is it? Maven has created a great web app for us, and honestly, it's not very, very easy to navigate an entire web app's files just from the terminal alone. We've learned the commands to navigate using the terminal, but right now, we actually want a more visual way to see our web app files because there's quite a few files. They're all in like these nested folder structure, and it's a little bit difficult to navigate it without a more visual aid. So who are we going to call? We're going to call VS Code this time. We're going to dial up VS Code. And we're going to say, hey, VS Code, got a bit of a problem here. Maven has done the great work for us to set up an amazing web app. I'm seeing build success in my terminal. It's looking good. But I can't actually see my web app files very easily in front of me. Can you help me just give me a visual aid for me to see my web app files in front of me? That's all I need. I'm not trying to create more files. I'm not trying to build new things. I'm just trying to see what I've already built with Maven. So that's what we're doing in this step. So VS Code says, Söylös. All you have to do is install this extension in VS Code called remote SSH. So let's do exactly that. So you can find that extension thing by clicking on the extensions icon in your sidebar. So you should be able to find it like this. There's this extensions icon like this. And I already have remote SSH installed from the previous project, but if you don't, you can just type in remote SSH like this in the search bar, and it'll come up for you, and you can click install for remote SSH. Okay, like this. Yeah, big shout out to King of Zamunda for saying, who we gotta call? Code Busters. Thank you so much, King of Zamunda. I appreciate that, man. And now that you have remote SSH installed, you can click on the double arrow icon at the very bottom. I don't know if I can zoom in like this. I don't think I can. You can click on this I hope you can see this, everyone. You can click on this arrow icon on the very edge bottom left corner. And this gives you a shortcut for using this extension you've installed. Click on that, and it's gonna say connect to host. All right, let's connect to a host, and a host is an EC2 instance. Click on that, and it's going to give you an existing instance if you've done project 1 of this series. If you see this instance, just know this instance would have been the instance you launched in the previous project, and you would have already deleted that instance. That instance won't actually live in your AWS account anymore. So does that mean we should keep this instance? Should we reuse this connection? No, we really shouldn't be. All right, so we need to actually remove this instance from our list of connections so that we don't get confused. We want to be reconnecting to a new instance over here. We don't want to keep the old connection. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to click on Configure SSH Hosts, okay? And it's going to give us a link to a configuration file. Click on that configuration file, and you'll see the inner configuration file over here. We have all the details of the previous EC2 instance that we were connected with. We don't need those details anymore. Again, that EC2 instance has been removed now, it's been deleted. And all we gotta do is delete it, just like that. Press Ctrl S on your keyboard to save those changes. And now we're going to try connect to that new EC2 instance that we've set up in the previous step earlier in this project. Okay, so we're gonna click on those arrow icons on the bottom left again, and we're gonna click on Connect to Host. I don't think that worked. Let me try again. Click on Connect to Host. Oh, I think it's because my config file is open. Maybe. Let's click on this double arrow icon. Let's click on Connect to Host. Why is it not opening? Open a remote window. Okay, I think there's a little bit of a bug going on here. I don't think it's connecting me. It's not letting me connect to host. So if this happens, I have no clue why this little bug is happening. I'm actually expecting, when I click on Connect to Host, for another little pop-up little window to open, but it hasn't opened. So I'm going to quit VS Code, and I'm going to see if it's going to show up when I open it again. Shall we see? Let us click on this and connect to a host. Oh, doesn't seem to work. Shall I uninstall my extension? Has anyone else had this issue before? Surely I'm not the only one that's had this issue before. And let's see. I'm gonna try install this extension one more time. And hopefully after I install it, I'll be able to have access to using remote SSH. I hope that was good. Oh, open a remote window. I wonder if there's a reason why this isn't working for me. What's wrong? What's wrong? What can I do? Remote SSH. Let's see. Is there any reason why this seems to click away from me? I genuinely have no clue why this is happening. And of course it happens on a live. So, can I do anything different to activate this for me? I'm starting to wonder if I should do this project. If I could do some of this project without needing to do this step. I think that's actually possible. It's just that it doesn't give you the most visual experience, and I would like to give you that. But I'm gonna give it one more try, trying to get that to work. If you have any other ideas on how I could get the remote SSH thing to work, I would love your help. Thank you so much, Aman, for saying you got this. I wonder what was going on there, but I'm just going to remove that. Okay, and then try. Thanks everyone for your help and support. Okay. Iman is saying that we should add the configuration. Choose a file to save the SSH configuration. Oh, is it because I'm no longer like connected using SSH to the EC2 instance? I wonder. Try the SSH option. Oh, where's the SSH option? Am I looking at the right place, everyone? Or am I looking at the wrong place? Correct. Connect current window to host. Alright, I think there's something a bit funny here. It doesn't seem to let me open a remote window. Or am I supposed to run SSH here first, actually, to make it work? I wonder what's going on. SSH-I. The path to the keypem file is this. EC2 user at, and what is the IPv4 DNS? Cool. Well, at least this works. So I will be able to do the project here if everything else fails. But in the meantime, thank you so much everyone for helping out in the chat. Benedict says Command-Shift-P and then search for remote SSH. Oh, yes, you're right. I haven't thought about that at all. Search for remote SSH. Add new SSH host. Thank you so much, Benedict. So that was the other way that you can get access to the commands for using the extension, the SSH, remote SSH extension. And I'd totally forgotten I could do that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Benedict. I appreciate it a lot. I think I will be doing that for sure. Now, how this works is what I've opened up is the ability to add a new host. And you will be able to see this option if this button was working well for you, and you can click here and you can click connect to host, and there should be a button that says, oh, add a new host that you can connect to. But what Benedict has helped us with is by clicking Command-Shift-P like this. Oops, did I just? Oh, Command-Shift-P. By clicking Command-Shift-P on your keyboard, which will activate this little window that helps you with using your extensions and like some other commands. And then you can go remote SSH like this, and then click on that add new SSH host option. This is basically the other way to get to the same setting if this button also isn't working for you. Okay, so what I'm going to type here is the instructions for connecting to the EC2 instance we'd like to connect with. So let us connect like this by typing out SSH -I, and I've already written it all out just now when I was trying to connect within the terminal. You're actually using the exact same command like this, but you're just pasting it in here now. You're gonna paste it here, you're gonna press enter, and then what that does is you've just told the remote SSH extension that you'd like to connect to this specific EC2 instance using this specific network key pair .pen file, which is your private key. So if you click here, oh, looks like there was an error. Let me try that again. Command-Shift-P, add new SSH host. Oh, I think we've already added the host. So actually what we are wanting to do is to connect to the host. Oh, and it actually resulted in an error. I wonder if something's happened here. I wonder if something's happened here. I'm going to quickly try to figure this out. Oh, I think could it have actually been because my config file, I'm gonna escape this. Could it actually have been because my config file had this extra new line? And that was the reason why there was an error? Or maybe I didn't save it properly just now when I deleted everything, which resulted in an error. But if you might have noticed that just now my double arrow icon and clicking on connect to host, it's working again now. Just out of nowhere, it's actually working again now. So at least this is now working as it's supposed to. And you can actually now just click on this add new SSH host as I was supposed to, and then press the command to connect to my EC2 instance. Okay, and I can confirm here that the details were loaded correctly. Okay, so now you can see in my config file that the details for my EC2 instance, this new one that we've spun up earlier in this step, is now in here. Okay, we even tell it where our key pair, our private key file is. We tell it the public IPv4 DNS of that EC2 instance, and that means we're ready to finally get to connecting to it. Thanks so much for everyone's patience while I was sorting that out. Errors happen all the time. They sometimes get to the best of people, but for us, we solved it together. So thank you so much. Yeah, everyone's saying a big kudos to Benedict. Same. I'm saying a big kudos to you. Oh, Glow had a good tip. You can add a host by clicking the last left sidebar. Looks like a monitor logo. Oh, cool. I'll do that next time. Praneet says, hi, Nat. Hi. And Find the Function says, VS Code Gremlins playing tricks again. At least it hasn't gotten to the best of us. Cool. Now that we have all of the details for the EC2 instance that we want to connect to, we can now just click on the double arrow icon again, select connect to host, and select this EC2 instance that we've added. Phew! That was a success, everyone. So just like that, what's happened here is we've now opened a remote window to the EC2 instance that we've connected with. Previously, we were in here, so this terminal is actually our local computer's terminal. And then we use that local computer terminal to get access to our EC2 instance. And then from here on onwards, we were inside the EC2 instance and we downloaded Maven, we downloaded Java, and we set up the web app inside the EC2 instance. So this terminal kind of gave us a window to the EC2 instance. And our problem was, I want to see the web app that I've created. And the terminal is not a very visual tool. You can't really click and drag in the terminal. But you can click and drag in this wider window called VS Code. So what we were trying to do by connecting it with remote SSH is by bringing in the benefits of having this wider window with so many visual elements, click and drag, all of that, and bring those benefits to the fact that we can actually SSH connect to an EC2 instance. So we have SSH connecting to an EC2 instance. We have this power. We also have another power, which is VS Code, that give us a visual look, a visual look and feel to our web app files or to any kind of code projects. And we're going to combine them so that we can SSH connect VS Code over to our EC2 instance. And voila, this is what happened when that connection was successful after a few tries. You can see now that we can now interact with VS Code like we're inside the EC2 instance. So this is very cool. King of Zamunda storing medals. Ivan says, sama. Benedict says, it was probably that extra line break. I know. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. But the moment you solve it, it's also very satisfying. King of Zamunda asks, quick question, Nat. How would it be different if we had installed the AWS CLI? Good question. Well, I think the AWS CLI is very helpful for interacting with your AWS resources. I don't think connecting to the EC2 instance would actually look very different. But if we had installed the AWS CLI, we could have just started creating the EC2 instance straight from the terminal without needing to create it in the AWS Management Console. That's how I think about the AWS CLI. The CLI is a way for us to, you know how we use terminal commands to replace clicks with code? The AWS CLI, you can think of it in a very similar way. It replaces clicks in the Management Console with code that you can just run in your terminal. That's honestly the probably the most like straightforward way to think about the CLI. So in our example, when were we clicking around in the management console? Well, we were really only clicking around in the management console when we were setting up this EC2 instance in the first place. So you could have done that in CLI with using CLI instead. Cool. Yeah, King of Zamunda says thanks. I hope that helps. If anyone else has any thoughts on that, add them to the chat. All right, but now that we've connected to our, we've remote SSH connected VS Code with our EC2 instance, we can now try open a folder, okay? And now it's giving us folders from the point of view of our EC2 instance's home directory. So we're now literally inside the EC2 instance, and we can open folders like they're just in our local computer. I just think that's really cool. From these options, select Network Web Project. That's what our web app is called. And then you're gonna select OK. And just like that, you'll be able to see your web app files. All right, looking stunning altogether. And do you see how it is so easy to just look at your web app files visually? Okay, because this is visual aid of your IDE being able to present your web app files almost like a nested kind of folder structure. Because otherwise you would have had to try run a lot of commands in your terminal to go, oh, ls, what's in this folder, ls. And then you'll have to run cd, change directory to go like, oh, let's go inside this folder, let's run ls again. All of those commands replaced by just having a very, very single glance kind of way of looking at your web app. And we are just going to replace the index.jsp code in that web app like this. Save that work by pressing Ctrl S, and then we're now ready to install Git. Oh my gosh! Because of that error, it seems like it took us a little while to get ready for this project. But now that we're here, we're gonna smash it out of the park, okay? Now that the development environment is ready, it looks pretty good to me. The next step is to set up Git on your EC2 instance. So in this step, we are going to install Git into the EC2 instance, i.e. where we're developing our web app. Okay, so what is Git? Git is really like a time machine and also a filing system for your code. How I think about Git is you first think about Git by, oh, Git helps me track changes that I make. That is honestly the best like beginner-friendly version to think about Git. It is a tool that helps you track changes that you make. And the more that you use Git, the more you realize that it helps you track those changes by taking snapshots of your work and then keeping those as separate versions of your work, of your code. So that if you ever need to go back to a previous version, Git's like, oh yeah, I have a snapshot. I have a snapshot of the last time we took a snapshot together of your work. Here's the snapshot. You can now go revert back to that snapshot, and now that bit means you're back to an earlier version of your work, of that previous snapshot. Being able to go back to previous versions, previous snapshots of your work is really helpful if something breaks. Let's say you've made a few new changes to your code, something breaks and you're like, oh my gosh, I've made so many changes that I honestly don't know where I started with going wrong. So why don't I just go back to an earlier version of my work and start all over again? Git helps you do that. I think the more you think about Git, the more you also pick up on the fact that Git is not just about the changes that are made, but also about who made those changes. Who was it? Because Git very much, you very much need to have an identity when you're using Git, and you're going to see that in a second. And the reason why Git needs identities is so that it can also attribute changes on to who made those changes. It can feel a bit like, oh my gosh, you're like interrogating me. You're always asking for who am I? When I'm making changes, you're always writing down my name. But that's so helpful when it comes to teamwork and collaboration, so that you can assign work to people, you can understand who made what changes. You don't have to rely on someone to say like, oh yeah, I made that change. Or if no one remembers who made that change, at least Git would. So you can think of it like this. So Git tracks every change you make. Okay, that's the first baseline thing you need to know. Next thing you need to know is Git is able to track those changes by taking snapshots of your work so that you can jump back to previous snapshots. And the third thing you should also know is that it really is not just about what changes were made, it's also about who made those changes. With all of these things combined, you can think about Git as a version control system, like this. But yeah, depending on how comfortable you are with Git, just hold on to which level of understanding you're able to kind of like understand for now. But you know, what beats hands-on learning? Not much. So we're going to be just using a few commands to install Git into our EC2 instance and play around with it so you can feel a bit more comfortable. So here we're not going to be opening the local computer's terminal. That's my slip here. There should be your VS Code's terminal for your EC2 instance. So I'm going to highlight this in red so you know that this is not the best way to be saying this step. It really should be your EC2 instance's terminal. Alright, so I'm going to take a second just to make a note about this so that we can correct that right after this live. Cool. And in the meantime, let me know in the chat if I'm going too fast or too slow. Any kind of feedback is much appreciated. Okay, so we're going to open up the terminal. This time we are connected to our EC2 instance. Okay, and you can see that it's your EC2 instance because look at that, EC2 user at the specific IP address of your EC2 instance. Now we're going to just install Git by running those two commands. I'm going to just paste that here so you can see it in action. And look at that, off it goes with installing it, and it's just installed. That was super fast. So those commands just now tells your EC2 instance to find all the latest updates of software that it has and install them right away before you install Git. So yeah, what that means is the two commands we installed, both of them, it's not like both of them are just for installing Git. It's more like the first line is to update all the software that we have locally first before we try to install something new. Cool. So now that we've run those commands, we can now verify the installation too. Copy that code, paste that in your terminal, and voila. It is really good to be able to verify that you've installed something by checking what version you're using. So we've just done that. Okay, so now we're going to just take a screenshot of our terminal to show the commands for installing and verifying Git. I feel like this screenshot would be insanely big if we want to take everything, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to prioritize the commands for installing Git. So I'm just going to take a screenshot of the first part, upload that, and head on to the next question. What is Git? How did you install it? Alright, Git is a version control system, which means it helps us with tracking changes and who made those changes. We installed Git using the command, which command was it? Sudo dnf install git -y. Okay, just like that. Something that actually should have been mentioned that I didn't mention, apologies everyone, is that using -y means we automatically say yes to every time our terminal might ask, every time our terminal asks for, I want to say permission, or ask for confirmation. But I've run out of characters. Classic net. Git is a version control system, which means it helps us track changes and who made those changes. We installed Git using the command sudo dnf install git-y, and using -y means we automatically say yes to every time our terminal asks for confirmation. Perfect. So we'll click done here. And a shout out to Praneeth in the chat for saying smooth. Thank you so much, Praneeth. So now that we've installed Git, great work, we're going to set up GitHub. GitHub is up next, and we're going to set up a GitHub account followed by creating a GitHub repository. Now, if you've never created a GitHub account before, we're going to do one straight away together, and then we're also going to create a GitHub repo. A GitHub repo, in short, is almost like a folder for your code. If you've never created a GitHub repo before, don't worry, we're going to start from scratch together. Okay, so in this step, we will set up GitHub by creating an account and creating a GitHub repo. Smiley face. Alright, so once we've got that going, we can sign into GitHub if you already have an account. But if you don't have an account, which is going to be my situation, we're going to head to GitHub's sign up page. Okay, we're going to copy that link. We're going to visit the GitHub sign up page, which, by the way, I visited for the first time in a few years, and I was stunned by the sign up flow. I'm like, oh, this is so different to how signing up to GitHub felt when I first signed up to GitHub. And yeah, I kind of appreciate this flow a lot. It looks pretty cool. So hang in there while you watch me sign up to GitHub, because I'm about to share a really cool hack with you. If you've already signed up to a platform before, like AWS, and you're thinking, oh man, I want to use this platform's free trial one more time so that I don't have to pay for like the paid trial, or because I just need more time to decide, you can actually use an email alias to help you with signing up for a new account with the same email. In my case, I already have an account under nextwork.org. Well, I think I might have removed it for this project. Oh yeah, so the email you have provided is already associated with an account. So what you can do is you can actually use an email alias, and in my case, I'm going to go Natasha plus AWS. And just like that, I can actually continue. Okay, I can continue, and I can, use it like a new account, completely new account. But because it starts with Natasha, and I have the plus, honestly, the plus is really the key thing here. You have set up an email alias, which means platforms like GitHub will recognize it like a completely new email, which is why you can create a completely new account. But when it actually comes to sending the emails, it will send to your original inbox. So these, any emails to Natasha plus AWS will actually just get sent straight to my personal natasha@nextwork.org inbox, which means you will still get all the communication around your account. You don't lose it to some sort of spam inbox you had to spin up and then throw away. And I personally find this super, super helpful. So email aliases for the win. Have you used an email alias before, or is this your very, very first time hearing about them? I would love to know. I think this is going to be very, very helpful on the day that you run out of your 12-month trial for some AWS resources and you decide you actually need to create a new AWS account. This is going to be pretty handy when that day comes. So I'm going to click continue here, and then we're going to create a password. Okay, shall I use this to set up a random password for me now? Yeah, let's just use this. Use suggested password. Oh, like that. Enter a username. We're gonna go nextwork, like this. Oh, username nextwork is not available. That's totally okay. Net@nextwork, like that. That looks pretty nice. Username may only contain alphanumeric characters. Okay, this is becoming hard for me. Network 1. Okay, we can continue with this. That's great. So yeah, let's click continue. Email preference. All right. Cool beans. And then we're gonna set up for an account by verifying ourselves with a puzzle. Okay. So let's do this. We're gonna pass the verification puzzle, I hope. Submit that. Done. I think that looks good. All right, so they've sent the code to my email address. And again, to prove that email aliases work, I'm gonna check my original email inbox for Natasha at Nextwork. And there we go, I found the launch code. It is 26261073. Perfect. So that launch code and everything, the verification stuff still gets sent to my original inbox. So that's pretty helpful. All right. So my account was created successfully. Please sign in to continue. Alrighty. So we have Natasha at +AWS at nextwork.org. And then we also have our password. Sign in. Oops. Jeepers creepers. I think what might have happened was when I was using the password creator, it could have honestly saved the wrong password for me. Did it? Maybe it did. That's okay. I'm going to quickly reset my password now. So that we can set a new password. That was so fast. How have I just literally lost access to my password right after I created it? I'm gonna quickly reset my password so that we can actually have access to our GitHub account. And then let's see. Okay, let's create a really easy, simple password that I can just use right now and then delete right afterwards. Okay. Okay, so going to just make sure I can just log in now. Yes, I can. Phew, okay, here we are. So once you've logged in, you would be able to see a dashboard that lets you honestly do so many different things. But the key thing here that we want to do is to be able to create a repository. Before we do that, let's do a quick rundown of what is GitHub. I feel like that's maybe something that I haven't really covered yet. So GitHub is kind of the storage space online for code that you get to track using Git. So if Git is a tool for tracking changes, we've just learned that it is something that helps us take snapshots. Thank you. See ya. If Git is a tool that helps you with tracking changes and save different versions of your code, think of GitHub as a storage space for different versions of your code. And a cool thing about GitHub that honestly we should also talk about is the fact that it helps you with storing all of this in the cloud in a place where anyone can really access your code in a very, very easy to access place, and also pull your code down to their local workspace, down to their local EC2 instance, for example, and start working on it very, very easily. How that helps is it really helps with collaboration. And it also, GitHub also comes with a lot of tools that helps you with working together very, very easily too. But I'm going to stop there in terms of the explanation for what is GitHub, because it's best shown by practice. The other thing to just note is that we are using GitHub because it is especially useful in situations where you are working in teams, and also the fact that GitHub is a very, very visual tool for using Git. You see how our interactions with Git so far is in the terminal, and you'll notice the difference of being able to use Git using GitHub very, very soon as well. Okay, cool. So why is GitHub and why are we using it? GitHub is a cloud, you can say a cloud storage space for us to keep source code for our applications or projects. GitHub uses Git to track changes in our source code and comes with different tools that help with collaboration. And what is something else? I'm using GitHub in this project to I'm using GitHub in this project to see Git, to use Git visually. And I've run out of characters again. Okay, that's okay. This happens. GitHub is a cloud storage space for us to keep source code for our applications or our projects. I'm just gonna do for our projects. GitHub uses Git to track changes in our source code, and comes with different tools that help with collaboration. We're using GitHub in this project. Since we're all doing this together, we're using GitHub in this project to use Git, to interact with Git visually. Nice. Done. Cool. I hope that helps. Is that the kind of way that you would explain GitHub yourself or Git yourself? Let me know. I'm very curious. I would love to know. Alrighty. So shall we keep on marching ahead with the next part? So now that we have set up GitHub, our account, we're going to set up a new repository on GitHub. So what is a repository? To store your code using Git, you create repositories. So again, if Git is the tool for tracking changes, we have GitHub, which is kind of like this cloud storage space to let us store and track all the different versions of our code and also collaborate on those things. And now we have repositories. You can think of repositories as a folder kind of, or a structure that contains our code. So it's almost like the way that we store things in GitHub or in Git is by using repositories. So if Git is the tool, you can think of repositories as almost like the foldering and the structure of it. If you're confused by what are repositories, you're absolutely welcome to mention that in the chat. But really, you can think about a repository as a folder that contains your project files and their entire version history. Hosting a repository, which we also call a repo, in the cloud, like on GitHub, means that people from all around the world can also access the repo and access the code. So after signing into GitHub or after signing up, you can see this little plus button on the top right-hand corner and right next to your profile image. And you can click on that to create a new repository like this. And then make sure that it is your username that's over here under owner, because we're just going to give it a repository name that's called Network DevOps Web App. Cool. I hope that's clear. And a big shout out to Sharmila in the chat for saying folders in Git. Honestly, that just explains it so well too. I think it doesn't get any simpler than that too. So for the description, we can enter Java Web App set up on an EC2 instance. So here we're just talking about what is this repository storing? What is this code that is storing? Well, it's storing a Java Web App, and we're setting it up on an EC2 instance as well. Cool. So right after that, we can choose the visibility settings. This one doesn't matter too much, but just know that if it's public, anyone on the internet can see it. If it's private, then it's only visible to you. Now, it's not a part of this project to create a README file yet. Maybe it's something that we'll work on later on, okay? But let's just add a README file anyway. Let's just take that because it is just so common across all projects that use Git that are on GitHub to have a README file. We'll talk more about README files when we come up to editing them, but for now, just know that this is honestly just so common across all projects hosted on GitHub too. And honestly, not just projects hosted on GitHub, just lots of projects that are in repos, in repositories. Just like that, I think you're ready to just select Create Repository now. And boom, you should have a new repository pop up in front of you. Welcome to your GitHub repository, your GitHub repo. It's looking nice and cozy in here, and we're gonna fill it up with a lot of content in the next few steps, I'm sure. So we're gonna take a screenshot to start with of our GitHub repository, and then we're gonna answer a few questions. Boop. What is a Git repository? Cool. A Git repository is a folder in Git that holds the source code of our application, project files, and their entire version history. Cool. I think we can kind of mention it as if Git is a tool for version control, a Git repository is a folder containing code or files that are being tracked with Git. Literally just made it with the character count. But yeah, that's how I think about Git repositories. What do we think? So now that we have GitHub and our Git repository all created, you're gonna now learn how to commit and push your changes to GitHub. So in this step, what we're going to do is we're gonna realize that we now have a place in the cloud that will store our code and track the changes that we make. GitHub repository right here. It's in the cloud. It can store our code. We've learned that GitHub is like a storage space for code, and it can track the changes that we make. It uses Git. But this storage folder, this exact GitHub repository right in front of us, it doesn't actually know where our web app files are. We've just called it a name. We've given it a name. We've named this cloud repository Network DevOps web app. And what that means is we've kind of like gone into GitHub and we've just created this new empty folder and we just named it Network DevOps web app. And now this folder is like, hooray, I'm born. I'm in this world now. And I'm ready to store and track changes to your files. Where are those files? Give them to me. I would like to see them. So we need to give instructions that help us with basically saying, oh yeah, now that we've set up our GitHub repository, let's give it the files that it's supposed to track. How do we give GitHub files to track when those files are inside an EC2 instance? Like, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna cross this little chasm between these files that we've created right now in here and GitHub, which is right here? I honestly find it so cool to know like two different things that kind of seem like at first glance might look like they're completely separate, just like in different parts of the internet. You can actually just connect very, very easily with the power of a few tools that help us with connecting software, connecting different tools. It's super cool. Let's get into it. So in this step, we are connecting our local workspace application, which is our web app project files, with our GitHub repository, so that changes made to our web app can be tracked with Git and updated in an accessible place in the cloud. That's one of the big reasons why we're using GitHub, so that all of the code changes that we make isn't just in our EC2 instance, which is slightly hidden away to people. It's literally inside an EC2 instance, which comes with a key pair, which comes with a private key, all of that. We're trying to make our code very accessible so that we can access it from anywhere. And really, if we want someone else to have access to it, and we don't really want to give them access to our EC2 instance, we can say, oh yeah, that code's on GitHub. You can go find it there instead. So it's very accessible in the cloud now, once it's connected to GitHub. So we're going to head back to our VS Code remote window. Okay, make sure it's the VS Code remote window by double checking that bottom left hand corner, because this bottom left hand corner should really show that you're using your SSH, you're using your EC2 instance's terminal, like here. So now, if you're in the wrong place, it will just show as the double arrows, the double arrow button, which we're not really using now. So head back here and make sure that you are in the right folder. The right folder is our project, our web app. So print your working directory, so pwd, and it tells you exactly which folder you're in right now. Now, pwd is telling us that, hey, you're in your Nextwork web project folder, and that's where we want to be, okay? This is the right folder that we want to be in, because we're about to set up something called a local repository here, okay? So we're going to do something called git init in this while we're in this folder. So let's run git init like this, and boom. Okay, there's a lot going on here. What's happened is that git init helps us create a local repository on our computer, or really on the EC2 instance. So when you run git init inside a directory, so we did git init inside this web project, it sets up this web project as a local Git repository so that changes are now tracked for version control. The local repository is where you use Git directly on your own EC2 instance. The edits you make in your local repo is only visible to you, and it's not shared to anyone yet. Okay, so if you're slightly confused by this, we've talked a lot about how GitHub is this place in the cloud that helps us track changes to our code. You can think of the local repository as the place to do that locally. So GitHub tells us differences and changes to our code in the cloud. The local repository can give us the exact same information, but within the EC2 instance itself. And it's not accessible in the cloud, not like the way the GitHub repository is. So the reason why we're even creating this local repository is because the local repository literally sits inside the Nextwork web project folder. Okay? This local repository is sitting inside the folder that contains all of the files that we want to track. Okay? Because this Nextwork web project folder has all of the files, all of the subfolders that we want to be tracking. So now that we have almost our local guy in the ground tracking all the changes happening locally, it can then update our GitHub repository in the cloud saying like, hey, these are all the changes I've noticed in the ground. Push those changes up to our GitHub repository. And our GitHub repository will be like, oh, thanks. Now I know these changes were made. And it can update the cloud version or what's hosted in GitHub to reflect accurately on what's actually currently the code in your web app project app. So now that we have that understanding, just know that this yellow text here that gets that runs automatically is basically telling you that what's been created is something called a master branch, and that you can also rename that master branch to something else. Whew. Are you ready for one more new concept? So we've talked a bit about Git, we've talked about local repositories, and now we're going to talk about something called master branch. Now that we know that Git is here to track changes to our code, you can think of tracking changes to our code as a historical thing, like, oh, I've made a change 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago. You can think about it in like vertical in time. But what if there are different versions of your code that you want to test? What if you want to keep this version, but also create a parallel version that is also doing something slightly different to your main version? That's where the concept of branches come in. You have Git that's capable of tracking changes over time, but Git is also very, very helpful for tracking parallel versions of the same code so that you can test out differences and test out variations in different branches. Even though we won't have multiple branches, we're only going to have one single branch in this project. Just know that when you see this yellow text, it's basically saying, hey, I've created this main branch for you, the branch that you need to have, and that branch is currently called master. So later on, when we create changes, we kind of save those changes directly to our master branch, and then we send those changes up to GitHub. Cool, I hope that was clear. I feel a little bit nervous about the explanation, so I hope that was okay. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. Okay, so take a screenshot of the response from running git init. I think we have the opportunity to take a pretty good screenshot here. So git init is in this line. Let us take a screenshot like this. Okay, and then we're going to upload that screenshot. Cool. So start your answer with git init is a command that... What does git init do? Git init is a command that initializes a local repository in our EC2 instances, Nixwork web project folder. We ran git init in our EC2 instances Nixwork web project folder. Cool, I hope that looks good. So git init is a command that initializes a local repository, and then we ran that in the Nixwork web project folder. After running git init, what happens? The response from the terminal is that a master branch has been created. A branch in GitHub, a branch in Git is a parallel version of our code. Usually it's a parallel version of the master branch itself, not other branches. That's typically what the master branch is parallel to. So usually if you update master, you really should be updating the branches as well to fit master, because master is kind of like your gold standard that you always come back to, and then these different branches are kind of like variations of that master branch. This isn't a hard and fast rule. You can definitely still have a branch that's not up to date with master anymore, but usually best practice is to keep them in parallel, keep them very, very consistent with each other, so that if you ever need to merge any changes, that merge is very, very smooth. But yeah, that's your fun fact of the day about branches. All right, we're gonna click done on that, and then we're gonna head back to our GitHub repository page. So we're going to head back to the GitHub repository page, and what do we see? In the blue section of the page titled Quick Setup, I know that we don't have this right now in front of us. So instead of looking at this blue section of the page, we are actually going to be looking somewhere else to find the exact same thing, which is the HTTPS URL. We can find it by just clicking on the green code button, like this. And then look at that. There's an option for us to just clone what we have using HTTPS. So we just need to copy that, and then we're going to try connect our local project folder with our GitHub repo using the next command. So head back to your terminal in VS Code, and we're going to now run this command that's called git remote add origin, and we're going to paste the URL to our GitHub repository. Okay, just went through very, very quickly. But really what happened there is the fact that git remote add origin is basically telling Git where your GitHub repository is located. Think of origin as just like a bookmark or like a variable for your GitHub project's URL. So you're basically just saying, hey, local Git, please remember the address of this certain repository and for GitHub, and this is the URL for it, the HTTPS URL for that repository. Can you please save that repository under the name origin, so that next time when I call origin, you will just send me this HTTPS URL. Cool. So we'll also now run something called git add dot. So we're gonna git add like this. Gonna run that, and then we are going to run git. Oh, actually, before we run git add, let's better understand what we just ran. So now that we over here have the address to our now that we have the address to our GitHub repository handy under the name origin, we're now going to run 3 commands that help us with moving our work from our local repository, moving all of the code in our EC2 instance over to GitHub. Okay, and we're going to do that by running this first command called git add, which stages all of the files in our local repository and basically highlights it and makes it ready for review, ready to be saved, ready to be sent to GitHub. It all starts with git add. So git add means stage all my changes, get them ready to be saved. And we have git add run right here. And then we're going to run this command next, which says git commit, and it comes with a little thing in quote marks. What's going on here? So git commit is a command that helps us save all of the changes that we've been locking up in our git add command. So git add kind of collated all the changes we've made, and in our case, what were those changes? Those changes were all of the files that we've created on the Nextweek web project. So git add collates all the changes, all the files we've created, and now git commit saves that to your local Git history. So now your local Git is going to remember, oh, so-and-so, so insert your name, has decided to just save all of these files that they've created. So let's run that command like this. And then we can even leave a message about what we've saved using -m. So you can usually just, if you do git commit, that's like saving your work, and then git commit -m means save my changes, save my work with this following message, updated index.jsp with new content. As you commit things, you can definitely change the message that's in here, but it's not, it's often best practice to be keeping this as short and concise while still being a bit descriptive as much as you can. So cool. Let us now run the final command, which is to git push -u origin master. My goodness, so many different words just like put into one place. But here in this command, git push -u origin master is a command that helps you push all of the changes you've saved. So git add is like gets it ready for saving. Git commit actually saves it. Now git push pushes what you've saved up to your GitHub repository. And git push is really what links the changes you make locally into the changes that get shown in GitHub. And again, think of GitHub as a way for you to store backup copies of your code, store copies of what you've saved using Git, and it's great for you to be able to share the code after you've uploaded it to GitHub too. So by -u, you're here to set an upstream for the local branch. But really -u is basically telling Git to please remember that the next time I run git push, I don't need to run .u origin master anymore. I can just run git push, and you know exactly that I am just trying to push my code into my master branch of the GitHub repo that's in the URL that I uploaded just now. Remember how a few commands ago we literally just said git remote at origin, this link. We're basically telling Git, hey, when I call origin again, when I call origin one more time, you're going to remember that origin is my link, the link that I have right here. And now we're going to call origin one more time. We say, hey, we're going to push our changes into origin, into the repo with that URL, and we're going to push it to their master branch. And once we've pushed it, please remember my settings, so that next time I can just run git push, and then you're gonna remember my settings and just use those settings for me. So that was what that command was about. And let's see what the terminal's response is. Oh, actually, we can see those terminal responses. The terminal response in a second. We can answer the questions. The first command I ran was git add. Which puts all our changes into a staging area. A staging area is a spot for Git to collate, highlight all changes made so that they can be reviewed. They can be reviewed together. Which helps us catch bugs, identify things we don't want to push. Oof, I ran out of space again, but I'll just say catch bugs instead then. Just like that. And I'm gonna click to the next one. What was the second command we ran? Okay, and what does it mean? So the second command we ran, what was it? Do you remember? The second command we ran was git commit -m, and then what was the message that we wrote? The message that we wrote was updated index.jsp. Using -m means we can leave a message about the work we've just saved into our Git history. Nice. Last thing, what was the third command? And the third command we ran was git push -u origin master. Using -u means upstream. So we're getting Git to remember that any git push run should automatically push local changes into the master branch of our origin GitHub repo. Cool. And just like that, we are so close. So we have gotten up to the point where we can see our username is being asked, the username for GitHub. So Git wants to know whether we're actually authorized to even push changes to the repo that we've created in GitHub. So GitHub is because all of the work can be shared in public. It means that it's actually pretty easy for people to start accessing the HTTPS URL for different kinds of repositories. So because of that, this is a really great safety measure from Git to just say, okay, you want to push some changes into this repository? Well, show me that you can. I'm going to ask for your username, and then I'm going to ask for your password, and I'm going to match that to my user database in the back to see whether or not you actually have authority to edit this specific repository. So let's bring on the challenge. For the username, enter your username. So in my case, it is netnextwork1. And what is the password? Type in the password, and you're going to notice that as you type things out, nothing's going to show in your terminal, but that's okay. This is totally expected. It's really just your terminal trying to protect your privacy here. So in this case, type out your password, press enter, and you're going to see the reason why we got this error is because support for password authentication has been removed, which means even if you type in the correct password, the support for using a password to check whether or not you have authentication, you have rights, has already, that's just so last year now, apparently. Well, really, it was so 2021 because they removed it back then, which means now you'll need to show your authentication, your authority over your GitHub repo in another way. Otherwise, you can't connect to your GitHub repo. So this is pretty important stuff, and we're just going to make sure we can do this using a friendly tool called a token. So you need now a personal access token to get access to your GitHub repo. It really is a more secure way for logging in and interacting with your repos compared to passwords. So passwords and support being removed is for a good reason. And if you're wondering what is a token in GitHub is this unique string of characters. It looks like this. You're going to see one very soon too. So let's take a screenshot of the terminal's response once you've entered your password. So let's take that screenshot. It should really say that authentication failed. That's how you know you've taken the right screenshot. Okay, and upload that up. Cool. When I commit changes to GitHub, Git asks for my credentials because it wants to know that we have authority to push changes to the GitHub repo we're using. Why did authentication fail when you entered your password? Well, GitHub authentication failed when we entered our password. Why was that? It was because password authentication is no longer supported. Goodbye. We need to use tokens instead. So now that we know passwords won't work for authentication, we'll have to find the replacement. Let's generate something called an authentication token on GitHub so that we can set up this token, and then we're going to use that token to access the GitHub repo. We're basically saying, let me in, let me in. I have a token that I can use. Find the function has mentioned some cool things in the comments in the chat. Did you know the first bug was actually a moth? A moth. Oh, cool. I'm actually quite new to the phrase moth. So if you don't mind sharing what that means, I'll be very grateful. Find the function also says, if you install the GitHub CLI, it makes stuff so smooth. It probably does. I'm a big fan of CLI. It really does make things a lot faster. I love using GitHub, especially when we're new, so that we can have a visual aid. But let me look into the GitHub CLI. Maybe we can do another project on this. Let me know if you'd be interested. Okay, so in this step, we will use GitHub to generate a new token. This new token will grant us access to our GitHub repo. Easy as. Okay, so now we're going to head back into our browser and have this with GitHub open. So it should look like this. And then select your profile icon and select settings at the bottom there. Oops, here. And once you're here, scroll all the way to the bottom of the left-hand navigation panel. The very last option is called developer settings, and we want to use that. So we're going to create a personal access token here. We're going to create a classic token. And then we're going to generate a token now. So let's click on generate new token and let us select new token classic. Okay. So give your token a descriptive note. In this case, you're basically saying, why did you create this token? What was the point? Okay, we're going to let them know. We've created this token for EC2 instance access. We want our EC2 instance to no longer have this silly issue of password authentication no longer being supported, and you need other modes of authentication. We want to just get through this hurdle here. So we're going to use tokens to do that. So we're going to enter that in. Expiration being 30 days is good. It really just tells us how long this access token can work for. You can honestly even move it down to 7 days, move it down to 2 days if you don't really need this token after this project. So next is to just select the checkbox next to repo at the very top here. So many checkboxes, my goodness. And each one of these checkboxes represents another kind of permission that you can give out through this token, so that anyone that uses this token to access your GitHub account can do this and this and this and this and this. Scopes helps us define what they have access to. So let's use that to just say, oh yeah, anyone using this authentication token should be able to have control over even the private repositories in this account. Okay, so now that we have this, we can take a screenshot of the setup page like this. Cool beans. And then we're going to click done. Wow. Shall we generate the token right away? I think so. Let's generate the token, and please make sure that you are keeping this token in a very safe place. I will be making sure that I delete this token at the end of this project so that no one watching this will be able to use this token. But tokens are like passwords. They really just grant you access. So we're going to keep ours very carefully. So what is a token anyway in GitHub, and why are you using one? Okay, so a GitHub token is a replacement for passwords in terms of authentication. I'm using one in this project because we can't get access. We can't get our EC2 instance access to our GitHub account until we give a valid non-password. Until we give a valid non-password authentication method. Alright, how did you set up a GitHub token? I could set up a GitHub token by visiting the developer settings in my GitHub account. And a big shout out to Joe. Hi Joe! So good to see you, man. How are you doing? How are you doing, Joe? So cool. Hope you're having fun. We're on the second part of our DevOps series right now. But I'm sure whatever project we're working on, I love that you're here for the vibes. And it's good to have you here. Okay, we'll submit our response to that. And we're going to switch back to our VS Code terminal. We have the token now. It's right here. So we're going to run git push -u origin master again, because this will trigger the question about what is your username. And we can enter that in. And now, instead of putting in the manual account password, we're going to give the GitHub token. So copy that GitHub token that was just created a minute ago and paste that in here. And what's going to happen? Oh. Let us try that one more time. Git push -u origin master. I think there was something that was a bit slow on my side, so I'm just going to try that one more time. So we are net nixwork1, and here for your password, when you paste it, you're not going to see it right out in front of you. You're not even going to see the number of characters in front of you, and this is all for security reasons. But just know the terminal is still listening. Just paste your password and press enter, even if you don't see anything in front of you. Pressed it, and look at that. We just got access to our GitHub account from our From our EC2 instance. So well done. Looks like GitHub recognizes your token and pushed your changes to your repository. Yeah, just like that, because don't forget that what triggered Git to ask for a username is the fact that we ran git push -u origin master. And this command pushes our changes. So the moment Git was like, oh, okay, fine, you have authority, you have the right password, you're in. The moment it lets us in, it already just runs this straight away for us. So that's why all of our changes should now be in GitHub. Okay, how do you check? Well, let's visit GitHub itself. So please do make sure you keep a copy of your token somewhere safe. And in the meantime, you can also now visit your repository. Okay, visit this. And look at that. Look at that. Isn't that so cool? You can now see all your work. Oh, in here. Oopsie daisies. You can even do something called a pull request over here, like this. That shows you like, oh, these are all the changes you've made. These are all the things that you've done. Now you might not see it like this depending on how you use GitHub, you might actually just see the web app files on GitHub straight away like this, but for me, I actually see a pull request, and I can even compare my branches. But actually, let's have a look now. Can I just pull request straight away? Oh, no worries, that's okay. You might need to actually refresh your tab to see this come up. Okay, this might take a bit of time for you. Cool. So I think we actually need to change to master like this so that you can actually see the files here. So we have the main branch, and it looks like actually what's happening here is master is a separate branch to main. I have no clue why that is. I am a little bit confused myself as well on why we have a new branch called master that's not main. But as you can see, once you click here, you can actually see all of your web app files now in your GitHub repository. This wasn't here before you ran those commands to push your changes upstream. So welcome to the power of being able to connect your local repository to GitHub. Now changes in your local repository can just be pushed up, and now you have a cloud copy of the changes that you've made. All right, very easy peasy, very cool. A big shout out to DevOps methodology in the chat for saying first time it's live and not the recording. It's our first time hanging out live, DevOps methodology. That's cool. I mean, it's been a long time coming. DevOps methodology has been so cool in the community. Check out their work if you haven't already. Okay, cool. So, by the way, if you just simply can't find your web app files, you think there's been an issue, please share any of those concerns, those queries with the Nextdoor community. We can help each other out. Okay, now here's a little extension bit. When you are committing changes, you might have noticed that there's actually something that says your name and email address in the terminal. Your name and email address were configured automatically based on your username and hostname. Please check that they are accurate. What's going on here? We haven't really addressed this, but it popped up in the terminal as a response when we tried to commit some work, when we tried to save some work. So what's going on here? Git is asking for our name and email address? Why does it need that? Well, don't forget that Git is here to track changes and who made those changes. So Git is trying to say, I really want to know what your name is and what your email is so I can track the changes you made and assign you or associate you with them so that people will know that you made those changes. Okay? How you can understand what were the automatic username and hostname that was set up is by running this command called git log. So head to your command prompt and type in git log like this. And just like that, you can see that there's been a history of a commit that was made in the past. Okay, so git log gives us a history of our commits, and it even tells us the commit author, who wrote this change. It says it's EC2 default user that made this change. Is that really our name? No, not really. That's not our name. And it doesn't exactly have our email information, so it's just even using the IPv4 address of, or really the host name of your EC2 instance instead of the email. It's not very accurate information. An EC2 default user is literally the default username for so many different EC2 instances. So let's try not to use that and try to tell Git very clearly what is your name and what is your email address so it can track those changes very easily. Okay, so let us over here take a screenshot like this of git log. Okay, and drag that screenshot in here before we dive into this question. Git needs my name and email because it needs to assign the changes I've made to the local repo with a name and email address. That's why. Running git log showed me that running git log showed me my previous commit, which revealed that the author name has been set to EC2 default user by default. Okay, so we'll just click done because this is what we've learned. And yeah, we'll just click done and send those through. So as a little extension, you can actually run something called git config to tell Git what your name actually is and what your email actually is. So it's no longer playing some sort of guessing name or giving you some very not so great generic names. So let us give this a go. We'll first run git config username, which is basically telling Git, hey, this is my username. Use this every time you need to know my name. So we're just gonna put your name as a little default value for this demo, but actually put in your name when you're doing this in front of you. Yeah. So we're gonna run that. Okay, and then we're gonna run the next thing, which is our email. Okay, so we're gonna configure our email as well, and then we're gonna tell Git what it is, just like that. Joe says, so sleepy, just finished a work meeting. Oh my gosh, your work meeting finished late, Joe. Happy to be here. Aw, thanks. And DevOps methodology just say, oh wow, you just appreciate me. It's great. I finished AWS code deploy project with extra notes. Congratulations on finishing code deploy. You're so close to the finish line now. It is so cool to see. And Ahmed says, hello, Natasha. I'm new to the DevOps series. Hello, Ahmed. A big warm welcome from me. And I hope you have fun while you do this DevOps series. It's so worth it. Links to them are in the description box for this video. Cool. So we've manually set our Git identity now, which is great. It just means that our local Git in our local repository can now say very, very confidently, oh, your name, you made these changes, and this is your email. So it can really attribute changes back to you now. Cool. So great success with getting the GitHub connection all set up. And now let's link your EC2 instance files with a cloud repository, basically our GitHub repository. So we can now see new changes made to the web app files. Shall we jump straight into it? In this step, we are going to make changes to our web app files so that we can test whether we can see those changes in GitHub. Oof. So keep your GitHub page open, switch back to your EC2 instances VS Code window, which is what's in front of me right now, and you're going to find index.jsp. So I have index.jsp open in front of me, but really what it should look like is you can open it from your Explorer icon, and then you can click on index.jsp. Okay, and once you've selected that, we're going to add a new line. Okay, we're going to add a new line here that says, if you see this line in GitHub, that means your latest changes are getting pushed to your cloud repo. That's right. So we're going to save this new version of index.jsp, and we're going to see how we can just get it on GitHub too. We have this change locally in front of us right now, but it's not even saved to our local repository yet, right? Because what do you need to save something to your local repository? Do you know? You need to use git commit. Git commit was a command that we ran in the previous step. So how we're going to do that is we're going to first see the impact of just pasting this line in GitHub. What does it look like in GitHub? Can you see a new thing? Let's go look at index.jsp. Oh, it still looks the same. It doesn't have this new line in there yet about if you see this line in GitHub, blah, blah, blah. So clearly just adding the change to the index.jsp file and even pressing Ctrl S is not enough. There's something more we need to do here, okay? And that something new is, do you know? It's to run the commands, okay? So head back to your VS Code window and let's stage our changes. Let's git add dot. And then we're gonna use this fun little command called git diff to tell us what were some of the changes that we've just made. Okay. Cool. Look at that. So by running git diff, we can see that there's been a change to our index.jsp file. We have added this line that says, this is my Nextwork web application working. Underneath that, sorry, this is what we've added. If you see this line in GitHub, that means your latest changes are getting pushed to your cloud repo. That's a huge success, all right? So what that means is, now that we've done that, we can use the command called Q, or really colon. So you can look for the colon thing and press Q on your keyboard to exit that view because you are stuck in something called the pager if you don't quit. And if you don't quit that view, you will end up having to just be stuck in that view and not be able to run commands again. The pager is just for you to see a few results, see your output. It's not here for you to run commands. So you have to almost quit that view using that colon Q thing that I pressed, and then now you're back into sending commands. Really handy. Okay. So, what we're gonna do now is we are now going to do some commands to actually commit and push our changes. So let's copy this code that helps us run git commit and git push. Those commands you would have learned to have helped you save your changes and then send those changes upstream. So let's do that. Okay, push that out. And oh my gosh, it's asking for our username one more time. Okay, so let us enter it. So it was Nat Nextwork 1, and in the authentication, the password would have been the token. So let's find the personal access token one more time. Let's copy it, paste it, boom, send it off. Okay, so just like that, we have just saved our changes into the local repository, and we've just also pushed those changes upstream into our GitHub repository. Shall we check if our work was done correctly? We can do that by visiting our GitHub repository right here, and let us refresh one more time. Do you think we can still see a new line at the bottom? We can. Very nice. If you see this line in GitHub, that means your latest changes are getting pushed to your cloud repo. Woo! So happy. I honestly feel so happy to be seeing such a great outcome, and I hope you're feeling proud of yourself too. So nice work if you got up to this point and you can see changes you make locally. Literally, we were making these changes over here, which feels like the other side of the world or other side of the internet. We're writing these changes here, and by running some commands in this space, we suddenly got those changes reflected here. Okay, I just find that flow so incredibly cool. We can do some local changes, and then with a few commands, we can see those changes somewhere in the cloud. It's just so cool to see that the cloud version of our repo updated so quickly. But yeah, very, very impressive stuff. Yeah, so DevOps methodology in the chat has also mentioned that you can run a command to see the username easily. And there's also git log p to see the differences between any changes in that file. Yeah, very, very helpful there. Thank you so much. And Duke says magical with a little wand. Thank you, Duke. I appreciate it a lot. Okay, so we're about to take our last screenshot now. We're going to take a screenshot of... Oh, sorry, Ned, my eyes are closing, says Joe. I was glad to be here and I'll watch the video later. Have a great rest of your live stream. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much for being here. It means the world to have you literally here even while your eyes are closing. You've had a long day at work. Means a lot. I'll see you next time. And I hope you have a good rest. All right. So we're going to keep on charging ahead by taking our last screenshot. Whew. Nice. We'll take the screenshot. We'll add that in here. And then we're going to write a response. We wanted to see Git working in action, so we updated index.jsp by adding a new line. We couldn't see the changes in our GitHub repo initially because we hadn't committed and pushed those changes yet. All right, that was the reason why. So we finally saw the changes in our GitHub repo after we ran git add, git commit, and git push. Again, we also had to enter our GitHub username and what is it called again? Personal access token to push changes upstream. Alright, so that really comes to the end of like the more practical part of this project here. I forgot to mention, but if you're sick already of having to type in your password and your username every time you push, there's actually something that you can run called git config -- global credential helper store. Now, this is a great command to run to ask it to just remember your credential details for next time. And let's give that a go. So let's say we want to, let's say we add that here. Git config, do you think it's going to remember? -- global credential .helper store. Is it going to remember? Let's see. Well, let us try run a new change by adding a new line, and let's just put some content in here. Who was the last person to comment? The last few people to comment were Joe Cheng, DevOps Duke Nuray, DevOps methodology, we've also had Ahmed Al-Sunni. So you're now in a new line for me. All right. So I've just written out those changes. I've just saved the file itself. It's not even in Git yet. So what happens when we refresh? Are you going to see it? No, we don't see it because we haven't actually saved those changes in our Git history and we haven't pushed those changes yet. So let us stage those changes. commit those changes, what should our message be? Added student names. And what's going to happen when I press git push? Oh, it's still going to ask for my username. I think it could be because I hadn't run git config global credential helper store. Maybe I made a typo there. I think I'm going to quickly see if I can go netnextwork1. The password is the personal access token. Okay, the changes were pushed. And let me just run this piece of code now. I hope this will actually help us save our credentials. If it doesn't, I wonder what's gone wrong. If I were to refresh this, ta-da! It's now updated. You can now see everyone's names in here because we successfully saved our changes locally, and then we pushed those changes upstream, and now those changes are reflected. So it looks really great. Yeah, I'm going to do one more change and see if our credentials were actually saved properly. Who was a few other people that commented today? We had Glow saying, "Oh, love you, Natasha." Thank you, Glow. Sending the love back. We also have Find the Function that commented. Sharmila as well. And we also have Praneeth. Oh, so many cool names here. Alright, let's try running git push. Oh, we actually need to add our changes first. Stage them. Commit them. We'll make the message more student names, maybe. Git push. Is it actually going to remember this time? It did. It remembered straight away. It remembered our credentials, the username and the password, because we ran that command right after the last time we put in those details. So git config remembers the details, and then it just reused those details for us, so we didn't have to press another name and password set up again. Isn't that so helpful? I love it. I love it so much. Marlon said, I missed your session. Just joined now. Marlon, where were you? Just kidding. It's good to see you here now, Marlon. Thanks so much for being here. And thankfully the session will be recorded, yeah? But yes, I'm so glad it saved our username and password right away. If I were to refresh, can you see it now? Yeah, you can still see it. You can still see it because those changes have been committed and they've been pushed. Yeah, Marlon, thank you so much for being here. Faraha says, yee. Duke says, we're forever etched in Nextwork's Git repo. You are actually, you really are. Find the Function says, welcome to the party, Marlon. Welcome, Marlon. Okay, so that wraps up the practical part of today's project, and let's delete our resources, okay? Try see if you can delete your resources by yourself, but really, I hope you're able to. All you gotta do is delete the instance that's running your, I'll sign out of my AWS account. But all you gotta do is you gotta delete the instance. And then, was there another AWS resource you created or anything else that you've used that needs to be deleted? Technically not. The only other thing we've really created is a key pair, but that key pair can be kept for the next project and beyond. So really the key one is to remove the instance. There is a free tier for the instances for Amazon EC2, but it's just that if you leave your instance running for 750 hours and it goes over, you start getting charged. You don't really know when is the next time you're going to do the next project. So it could be a lot safer to just delete your instance. So let us delete the instance, terminate it, done. All right? You can totally keep the key pair for the next part of this series. It's free to keep them, and of course, so are VS Code and GitHub. They're free to use. Praneeth is always such an advocate for deleting your resources, so it's cool to see Praneeth mentioning that without fail. Thank you so much, Praneeth. You keep us accountable for this. All right, that's another AWS project done. What is GitHub and how did you use it? GitHub is a cloud service that stores our code and tracks changes made to the code. It uses Git to track those changes and is a great tool for teamwork and collaboration. What is one thing you didn't expect in this project? Oh, I think there was something we didn't mention. How did you use it in today's project? Ooh, okay. We used Git to track changes to our web app source code files. Nice. What is one thing you didn't expect in this project? Well, one thing we didn't expect, maybe, is having to set up a local repo first before local changes can be reflected in the GitHub repository. What is something else you didn't expect? Is there something else that you've learned or that is new to you in this project today? I think for me, having to use a personal access token instead of the usual password was also a surprise. Who knew you can't actually use passwords anymore? Well, thank you GitHub for letting us know. So another AWS project done. How much time did this project take you? This project took us 2.5 hours, including demo time and working through the setup in step 2. Thanks for doing this project. Why did you do this project today? Did this project meet your goals? Okay. We did this project today. By the way, before I type in a full answer, please know that this is an incredibly personal kind of question. So truly any reason why you did this project and truly any kind of feedback on whether or not this project met your goals will be well appreciated. This response won't be captured in your documentation, so you won't be needing to publish your thoughts in here in your LinkedIn posts, etc. So please don't feel pressured by this question. Answer as you feel. Answer what your heart says. We would love to know. So we did this project today to better understand GitHub and using Git. And for the study live vibes, did this project meet your goals? Met our goals and was a lot of fun. Awesome stuff. So we are now ready to wrap up this project. Congratulations, high fives all around. We have set up our very own Git repository with GitHub, and in our next project we're going to be setting up something called an code artifact. And this code artifact service is going to help us with storing backup copies of our web apps, packages, and dependencies. So think of code artifact really like a giant toolbox where you can just grab all of the external tools, which are called packages, that our project needs to come to life, and it puts them in a safe place. So we have backup copies in case those tools go down in the public space. You're gonna learn a lot about code artifact. I honestly think about code artifact in a GitHub repository as something that serves very, very similar things, serve a similar purpose. But you can think of the GitHub repo as the repository for your source code. Then code artifact is the repo for your external tools, your packages. So cool beans. In the meantime, let's celebrate, because today we've learned how to set up a GitHub repo, we've configured Git, and we've also set up a local repository, and now we've also made our first commit, and we've pushed as well. Thank you so much for being here. Let us finish off this project by clicking Mission Accomplished. Boom! Hang tight, your cool docs are on the way, so let us read a comment or two in the meantime. From Australia, Perth, Marlon, thank you so much for tuning in from Perth. Great question, Marlon. How can I automatically roll back a deployment in AWS if the build from GitHub fails? Well, depends on what service you're using. Different services for building have different ways to approach that. But I love that DevOps methodology mentioned enable automatic rollback and code deploy. I was just about to say it, but it looks like your notes have truly served you well, because that is exactly on point. Praneeth is waiting for that magical document generation, so let us download the documentation now. Without further ado, and let's have a look at the beautiful document that is all about your work today and all of the text, all of the questions you've answered today all together. So you've connected a GitHub repo with AWS. You've talked about, what is GitHub? What's something you didn't expect? Look at that, you've even introduced Git and GitHub in here. What? Look at that, your local repository work. Wow, to push local changes to GitHub, you ran 3 commands. You sure did. And what were those 3 commands? Look at you go. You've done some work with authentication, like your local Git identity, and you committing changes to GitHub. And of course, there's a bit of stuff with GitHub tokens as well. You created the token. Okay? What else have we done? Well, we made changes once more. We even talked about that. And we even uploaded screenshots for that. So this really wraps up your entire journey in a nice little PDF that you can now share on LinkedIn like this. Perfect. And you can post right away, right after you edit the post a little bit. So make sure to be tagging Nextwork fully. Close this little preview like this and add a document like this. Okay, so you can choose the file that you've downloaded, and then you can even enter connecting GitHub with AWS maybe as the title of your document. Once you press done, you can straight away press post, and off you go. Your amazing work off into the world. This looks amazing. You've done an amazing job. You should be so proud of yourself. And that really wraps up our project for today. You can click on Discover More Projects to see more projects on the left-hand sidebar. Let me actually bring this here so you can see it properly. So you can discover more projects here. Okay, and actually now that we're all here, we've actually created a very, very new beginner-friendly project called Getting Started with AWS Projects. This is super new. It's all about creating an AWS account. It's pretty cool. So if you don't have an AWS account yet, this is how you can create one. And with that, that also launched something that's for every new Nextwork student. We also just launched this today. It's the 5-day challenge for students who are completely new to AWS. And what you get is you get this little tailored program on the first 5 projects that you can do in your journey. Well, if you're seeing this right now and you're new to AWS, just know that Nextwork truly is designed for absolute beginners, and we hope you have the best time getting started. So thank you everyone for your amazing energy in today's Project Live demo. I had so much fun. I hope you had too. And yeah, Furaha. Not gonna lie, this is the coolest learning resource. Oh my gosh, can't wait. Me too, I can't wait as well. Furaha, I hope you have the most fun there. DevOps methodology, saying great documentation, just going for this. Can't wait. Me too, DevOps methodology. I hope you have the most fun using the documentation generator for this project too. You're absolutely nailing it. So yeah, I can't wait to see how everyone finds this project. I'll be anticipating all of the project posts. If you get stuck, ask any questions in the Nextwork community. You'll be able to find us just by entering community.nextwork.org like this. Once you enter that, you'll be able to find our community full of questions, full of life, full of people sharing their documentation and their work as well. Awesome, everyone. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next live. Have fun, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming along to the live. See ya!